Welcome to Xhibition, an Xbox podcast, episode number 53. My name is Samuel Adams, and this is a weekly show dedicated entirely to the world of Xbox, bringing you everything you need to know to keep yourself in the loop. So if you enjoy the show, you like what you see or what you hear, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, add the show to your podcast feed of choice, and get it delivered right to you each and every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. But if you're somebody who already does that and adds the show to their feed and they come here every week, I appreciate you so much, and I'm so glad you take time out of your week to watch little old me talk about big old Xbox. But with that being said, we have a lot of big stories to dive into today, a couple of which are Star Wars related. Of course, right now the Star Wars celebration is going on, and with that, we have seen the reveal of Star Wars Jedi Survivors in full. We have a bit of a cinematic trailer that we're digging into today, and on top of that, we have the release time frame of 2023. Unfortunately, once again, not coming in 2022, which does take a big AAA game out of the lineup for this holiday season. We'll discuss that on today's show as well. But Keighley sets the tone for what to expect with Summer Game Fest and associated events throughout the summer season. We have some Sniper Elite 5 reviews to dig into, some cloud gaming talk, and Microsoft reportedly passed on getting that KOTOR remake locked down as an exclusive for Xbox. Of course, it is coming out as a timed PlayStation 5 exclusive in the console space, and we have plenty more than even these stories to dive into. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Sniper Elite 5 launched this week on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, but of course it did launch directly into Game Pass, and it's one of the biggest Xbox Game Pass games of the season. I think this is a fantastic addition to the service, and it's one that I fully intend on checking out. Personally, I've been digging into the Halo weeklies this week, and I've been kind of busy with work and life, so I haven't exactly had time to spend with games, but this is certainly one I'm going to check out because the reviews are looking pretty stellar. From Eurogamer, we have a rating of an essential, saying, quote, "A consistently entertaining series steps up a gear to provide a true great of the genre," end quote. IGN lands it at a 7 out of 10. Rock Paper Shotgun says Sniper Elite 5 maintains the series' signature sharpshooting across some gorgeous locales, but its renewed emphasis on close combat encounters often feels like a shallow sidestep away from your rifle, leaving objectives feeling flat and monotonous. Games Radar gives it a 4.5 out of 5, saying Sniper Elite 5 is the best it's ever been with a new game mode that will blow your mind, end quote. So that's just kind of a sample of what the reviews are saying about Sniper Elite 5, and I have seen some claim that it is the best Sniper Elite to date. And thinking back, I think that my mind goes to Sniper Elite V2 as the one that really stands out to me, and I have not played all of them, but that one is the one that really kind of drove the series to fame. And of course, it does stick to the traditional tropes of the X-ray sniper shots that we all know and love. That's kind of the big gimmick for Sniper Elite, and you see that mechanic transition over to pistols as well in Sniper Elite 5, and so you get more of that throughout your gameplay style. But another interesting tidbit here about Sniper Elite 5 is there is this invasion kind of mode where you can invade another player's game and work to take them out, so it adds kind of this adversarial approach in a multiplayer capacity. Really interesting stuff there. Now, speaking of multiplayer, it does have an entire multiplayer suite built into the game, so it's not just a single player sniper experience. You do have that competitive PvP kind of experience if you do want to dive in on that side. The big question in my mind is how active will these servers be, and will people really engage? Is it going to be a great experience? And of course, with many reviews, you don't have that kind of baked in because the servers either aren't live or there aren't enough people playing on them outside of the reviewers to really get a feel for how the multiplayer itself plays. All of that being taken into account, I mean, you're looking at a game that's sitting between a 4 and a 5 from most outlets across the board. Certainly seems like a great addition to the service. So if you're in the market for something new to play, or if you just want to add this one to your play later list in Xbox Game Pass, which is a functionality that the app has, by the way. If you have not found that out, you can literally make a play later list, which I would certainly recommend. Then by all means, add Sniper Elite 5, boot it up, see if you enjoy it, because if you're a Game Pass subscriber, you might as well well, it's included in the service, which again is a phenomenal value proposition, especially when it comes to day one releases like this. Summer Game Fest is quickly on the way, and I say that not talking about Summer Game Fest proper, which is the event hosted and created by Jeff Keighley, but instead this kind of season of events that we have, what would traditionally be called E3, where you have a look at what's coming from publishers and developers across the industry. And Keighley earlier this week took to Twitter Spaces to shed some light on what we can kind of expect in terms of cadence and in terms of events to look forward to later on this year. And traditionally, we've seen something coming from everyone. I mean, from the biggest Sony State of Play or the biggest Microsoft Xbox event, all the way down to a Devolver Digital showcase, or even smaller than that, you have the Guerrilla Collective, for instance, which is a very niche indie kind of presentation. And so Keighley explained what to expect this season by saying to expect fewer third-party showcases this summer. And I am reading from Video Games Chronicles' Andy Robinson, who writes, speaking during a Twitter Spaces audio session this weekend, Keighley said consumers should expect less third-party conferences this year, as those publishers with less content instead opt to participate in Summer Game Fest and first-party conferences, such as the Bethesda and Xbox Showcase. There were a lot of shows last year where everyone was disappointed when they weren't really press conferences, right? Like Take-Two, Capcom, Square Enix, and things like that. I think they have learned that if you're going to do a press conference, you kind of need to have 30 minutes plus of stuff, and sometimes they only have one or two great games to show, which may not be enough to do a full event around. Keighley added, so I think that's going to be a bit of a shift. I have a pretty good sense of what's coming in the next month, and I think people will be hyped about games in general. There is still a lack of games coming out right now. This kind of is the COVID gap year, I think, with a lot of games being delayed because they were started during the pandemic. We're still hoping for a lot of things to come out, end quote. Of course, Summer Game Fest is kicking off on Thursday, June the 9th. We have a Sony State of Play confirmed for Thursday, June 2nd? No, yes, that is right, because weeks are divided into 7-day periods. So Thursday, June 2nd, for a Sony State of Play, we have the Xbox and Bethesda Showcase on June 11th. So in short, we're pretty much about 1 week away from really getting a lot more detail as to what to expect from the remainder of this year. And as Keighley states here, I agree that we aren't going to be seeing as much as we traditionally would, and I think that's something that if anyone is remotely into gaming, they're probably already aware of, because we see delays across the entire industry from the smallest indies all the way up to the biggest AAA releases, and so this year may be a bit lacking when it comes to new releases. But as I said on last week's show, I don't really mind this because of the amount of games that I have in the backlog, and on top of that, the amount of ongoing support that we see coming for existing games that are out right now. And some people do want those continual new experiences, and I get that. It's nice to have something that is completely and entirely fresh. You know, just as we first discussed, Sniper Elite 5 is a game that is fresh for me on Game Pass. It is not a new expansion. It is not a new free update with some more maps. It is an entirely new game, and that's great, and those are still coming. But when it comes to these big new AAA experiences, you might have to wait a bit longer. However, I'm still excited about seeing what Halo brings for the first anniversary of Halo Infinite. On top of that, there are rumors and rumblings of a Forza Horizon 5 expansion, and seeing what that first expansion could look like. That could potentially be a great filler for this fall season, as we're coming up on that game's first anniversary as well. And there are plenty of other games that fit into that mold of being able to say, hey, we have this content, why don't you come back to it? And I think that's going to be a great opportunity for these studios to kind of add some filler in there while we wait for Q1 2023, which is what looks to be the first big quarter where we see huge releases coming out, like the Dead Space remake, for instance. I think that's going to be a very, very big deal. So, Keighley has set the tone. We'll see what comes of it. But as he says, I think there is still plenty to look forward to when it comes to new game announcements and ultimately new game releases this year, but it may not be as much as players might expect or want after having a few years of what is admittedly kind of lacking in content. I mean, really, we have had some big releases in the past few years, but when it comes to hitting that cadence that I think that Microsoft specifically has wanted to hit, and we've discussed this previously as well, of having one big AAA game per quarter, that's just not a reality yet. And so hopefully in 2023, we start to see that become a reality. But again, still plenty to look forward to, even outside of the AAA space and outside of these monstrous releases. People are still making games, and games are still hitting store shelves each and every week. So there's always something to look forward to if you look hard enough. Speaking of things to look forward to, we finally got a glimpse of Star Wars Jedi Survivor at this week's Star Wars Celebration, with the game officially coming in 2023. John Carson over at Game Informer has a quick write-up on the reveal, saying, quote, Star Wars Jedi Survivor takes place 5 years after the events of Fallen Order, and according to a press release, Cal, quote, begins to feel the pressure of being one of the last remaining Jedi in the galaxy, end quote. Along this new journey, he'll meet new and interesting characters, and the game will expand on the combat system from the original, with Cal learning new ways of tapping into the Force. Stig Asmussen, the director of Fallen Order, is back at the helm for Survivor. He says, quote, for Jedi Survivor, we are working in lockstep with Lucasfilm Games to build on the legacy of Jedi Fallen Order. We're leveraging advanced technology to create more dynamic Jedi combat and cinematic storytelling to expand on Cal's story as he matures and survives during the dark times, Asmussen says. We can't wait to share more about the game with the world later this year. Respawn is targeting a 2023 release for Star Wars Jedi Survivor, exclusively on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. That is right, just current-gen hardware. The PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One are no longer in the mix. So a couple of points here. There is a great write-up and an interview with Stig over on StarWars.com digging into the successes of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, while also noting some of what to come with Jedi Survivor. And he talks about the actual technology of the next-generation consoles, specifically focusing on ray tracing and lighting, making something that is more cinematic and real than we've ever really seen. He describes it as filmic in the official write-up. So that's something that is exciting to me. And that's kind of something that I see across the board, is that we're seeing this shift away from cross-generational games and finally making that leap and saying, hey, these consoles have been out for going on 3 years now. It's time to really up the ante and go all in on development for current gen consoles, which are the next gen consoles, but now they're current exclusively, and leaving that last generation behind. So I think you're going to start to see really an uptick in fidelity, an uptick in performance and optimization. And I think that we're really going to be pushing these consoles to the limits, which then brings us to the conversation of, well, PS5 Pro, Xbox Series X, whatever, whatever it ends up being, there has to be some kind of next iteration on the way. And we saw a bit of a blurb from that this week, some conversation from the team at TCL where they were previewing their TVs, and they made it a point to mention that next generation consoles were currently being developed. And by next generation, I mean next iteration. But that was confirmed to just be a misspeak. Nothing to confirm right now. No details to dig into there. But I do think that these consoles that we have in our living rooms right now, if you have a PS5 or an Xbox Series X and an S, have technology that is untapped. And it's time to really tap into that and use it to its full potential. So clearly, Star Wars Jedi Survivor is going to be doing that. But they say this game will have a darker tone. Overall, they're being pretty hush-hush when it comes to details on story and the characters. But the actual trailer itself looks incredibly interesting, and I'm very excited to dig back into this one, because if you have not played it, it might be on Game Pass. I think that it is. I think it's included with EA Play, but it certainly is a game worth checking out. I love the combat, I love the story, and it certainly is a good game to go back to if you have not gotten all of the collectibles. So check it out if you have not, but 2023 will be the year for Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And it is kind of unfortunate that the game isn't coming out in 2022. I was hoping to see this one later this year, but I would rather see a 2023 timeframe that gives an entire year for the game to release rather than target a specific time frame or a specific window that isn't going to be possible. And I think that's feedback that may have gotten to the EA team. I mean, we've seen a lot of talk about this game launching later this year. And so it's nice to see that maybe they're getting ahead of that and just saying, rather than saying holiday 2022, let's just nip it in the bud, set reasonable expectations. And I don't think people are going to be upset about that. I haven't seen too much in the way of complaint. So looking forward to seeing more of Jedi Survivor. And of course, I love me some Cal Kestis. What a fantastic addition to the Star Wars universe. Continuing the Star Wars talk, we all know that Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic is getting a remake from the ground up, and it is going to be launching as a timed console exclusive on PlayStation 5 alongside the PC release. But a new report from Mr. Matty Plays over on YouTube, of course, also host of Defining Duke and Xbox podcast, shares that Microsoft was offered a deal similar to that of PlayStation. This report comes from Twisted Voxel, which is talking about what Mr. Matty Plays said, and they write, Xbox may have turned down the Star Wars KOTOR remake according to a new report. YouTuber Mr. Matty Plays has heard from accurate sources that Microsoft was approached for a deal to release the Star Wars KOTOR remake on Xbox consoles. However, much like in the case of the Marvel offer, the console maker also turned down this offer to focus on its own IPs. Mr. Matty Plays reminded his audience that Knights of the Old Republic was originally an Xbox console exclusive on the first ever Xbox console. As an Xbox fan, he expressed his frustration in Microsoft's decision to pass up on Disney's pop culture IPs. Based on his information, the deal didn't go through partly because the third-party collaboration was being handled by Aspyr. A possible explanation could be Microsoft's lack of faith in Aspyr to deliver a worthy remake that fans would come to expect. Mr. Matty Plays does not know when exactly the deal was put together, but it ultimately ended up in Sony's hands. Matt further said that PlayStation took the ball and ran with it, opening the avenues for the console maker to make games based on other Disney IPs, such as Wolverine. The Star Wars KOTOR remake, a graphically upgraded remake of the original game, was announced by Aspyr for Microsoft Windows and PlayStation 5 in September of 2021. Now, it is important to note here that it seems like there's a lot of activity in the Star Wars KOTOR world. We have KOTOR releasing on Switch recently. We have KOTOR 2 also having come out, if not coming out on Switch. I think that it just got announced to come out. I saw that scrolling through the Twitter feed this week. But I think that right now it's a very interesting approach from Microsoft because we saw earlier this week also a report that they turned down a similar deal from Marvel that Sony got, where potentially there is an alternate universe where Spider-Man could have ended up in the hands of Xbox in the gaming world. And once again, it is one of those situations where the reports suggest they turn down these deals with very, very big entities to focus on building out their own catalog and to focus on creating unique experiences that are only found on Xbox. And I have multiple feelings on this approach. For one, I like what Microsoft is doing, but they have to deliver. That's the biggest issue that I have right now, is that I love the promise of having these unique new ideas. Avowed, for instance, is completely and entirely unique. That's not a world that has been acquired. That is not a world that has been brought over from PlayStation to Xbox or from a third party to a first party. That is just something that is being created from the ground up. And I think that's something that is kind of lacking in the gaming world right now, especially in the AAA space. And so I love this originality. But again, Avowed isn't out right now, and we will see at the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase if we get some kind of release time frame for that one. But my point is that we've seen a lot of talk about these original games. We've seen a lot of talk about original development, but we haven't gotten any experiences yet. We have Halo Infinite. We have a couple of other games that have come out for this console cycle that are big exclusives, but we really need more. We really, really do. And so I think there is validity in their approach, but at the same time, it would have been a big Xbox win to have KOTOR locked down as a console exclusive in the same way that we saw the exclusivity back in the day. I think that would have been a great way to kind of mark the 20th anniversary season. I think that kind of goes a couple of years either way. It would be a great way to kind of honor the legacy of Xbox. And I think that depending on the price, depending on the quality of the final product, that could have been a great win. Now, again, to the point that Twisted Voxel here is making, and quoting on Mr. Matty Plays, it very well could be a bad game. It very well could be a negative remake. I mean, we saw what happened with the San Andreas remakes from Rockstar. Not saying these are going to be one-to-one. Even the cinematic trailer is kind of setting a tone that is going to be hopefully matched. And I think there is going to be some good gameplay coming from this experience, but there's always the chance that something could be bad. There really is. And so it's important to kind of set those expectations early, and I think they are setting some expectations. They are high. Will they be met? TBD. Interesting nonetheless to see Microsoft's approach on this specific deal and the deals they have been reported to have been offered in the past couple of weeks. Once again, it's just time to deliver some games. I'm good with the promise. I'm good with the idea. We've got to have some new experiences that make it worth going all in on Xbox and going as the core experience for my gaming life. It's got to be earning my dollars. It's got to be earning my fanfare, because there's a lot to play out there. And if PlayStation starts throwing some cash around and they keep landing these big deals with well-known entities, Xbox has to have something they're competing with. And if that's original IP, well, they better make it good. If you do play in the Xbox ecosystem, you have multiple ways to do that. You've got consoles, PC, and cloud streaming. And if you want to dig more into cloud streaming as your go-to experience, Microsoft has a new device on the way that could be your answer, and it's codenamed Keystone. This is an exclusive report from Windows Central's Jez Corden, who shares more details on this project Keystone, which is a code name that appeared in an Xbox OS list, which lends fire to rumors that Microsoft is continuing to explore additional hardware for the lineup, and they can confirm that this is now true. In a statement provided to Windows Central, a Microsoft spokesperson described its commitment to lowering boundaries to Xbox content via low-cost hardware, while acknowledging that the existing version of Keystone needs a little more time to bake before going live. They write, quote, "Our vision for Xbox Cloud Gaming is unwavering. Our goal is to enable people to play the games they want on the devices they want, anywhere they want. As announced last year, we've been working on a game streaming device, codenamed Keystone, that could be connected to any TV or monitor without the need for a console. As part of any technical journey, we are constantly evaluating our efforts, reviewing our learnings, and ensuring we are bringing value to our customers. We have made the decision to pivot away from the current iteration of the Keystone device. We will take our learnings and refocus our efforts on a new approach that will allow us to deliver Xbox Cloud Gaming to more players around the world in the future," end quote. From what we understand, Jez writes, Keystone has been in development for a couple of years, with Microsoft continuing to finalize the product's feature set. To speculate, Keystone could eventually run some sort of slimmed-down Windows or Xbox OS, given that Keystone originally appeared in an OS list alongside the different Xbox platforms like ERA and Game OS. Utilizing Windows instead of alternatives like Android would allow Microsoft to offer its own streaming media apps like Microsoft Movies and TV, although using Android OSP would potentially be a quicker route to market, leaning on apps like Netflix and perhaps Spotify. So the big question is, will this appear at the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase? And I think that it will not. I think that we will not see anything of a new Xbox gaming experience because of this statement that kind of sets the tone, saying, hey, it's not ready. We're kind of going back to the drawing board. We have a good direction, but we're not prepared to share more at this time. I'll be shocked if we see anything like this, other than maybe a teaser for what's to come. I think maybe you could see a bit of a sizzle reel, but outside of that, I think this is something that could be a bit further off. And I like the approach here because this needs to be done well the first time. Because right now, there's a lot of hesitation in the gaming industry around cloud gaming. And once again, just like the Xbox Game Pass lineup itself, when it comes to how cloud gaming fits into the Xbox ecosystem, it's more of a Game Pass delivery service that is given as a partner to the console or PC gaming experience. It is an accessory for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. It is not the star of the show right now. And so the hardware that Microsoft delivers needs to be able to hit a specific level of quality that is able to say, hey, this is a legitimate option. It's not going to be as good as the console or the PC experience, but if you just want some solid gameplay for a low cost of maybe $100, let's just throw that number out into the world. This is a great opportunity to get in on the ground floor. And hey, we have this subscription service to where you spend $100 right now on this streaming device. And then we also have this $15 per month subscription, or let's say it's a cloud exclusive iteration of this that's $7.99 per month. $8 a month, which is way cheaper than Netflix, and $100 gets you access to hundreds of games on Game Pass, including day one releases. I think you're definitely going to sell some, especially for those that might be casual players. I see this being the perfect opportunity for maybe somebody in college who might not have a ton of money. They're paying their way through school, they're trying to kickstart their career, but they still want to have some time for some games. Rather than dropping $500 on an Xbox Series X, throw an old 1080p TV in the corner, hook up one of these streaming devices, and boom, you're playing the latest games rather than going and spending $150 or $200 on an Xbox One that might not have the most recent releases. Cloud gaming is powered by Xbox Series X architecture, and so there you have it. You have a next generation experience ready and waiting for you without the actual cost of getting that next gen experience. I think there is certainly something to be said for that idea and that concept. And I'm looking forward to learning more when the time is right. But you can see a couple of concepts online from people that have given their opinion of what this device could look like. And ultimately, we will just have to wait and see what this ends up actually looking like on the shelf alongside the TV. But exciting in concept. Let's just see if they can deliver on the final idea. For fans of Destroy All Humans, it's been a good couple of years for you. Of course, we saw the Destroy All Humans remake. We see Destroy All Humans 2 Reprobed coming out soon. And now it looks like there is a third experience on the way thanks to a leak from the Xbox Store called Destroy All Humans Clone Carnage. This comes from Liam Doolin over on Pure Xbox, who writes, according to the official description of the leak, this is a standalone multiplayer DLC that is not available separately and is playable on the Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S. Here is the full description from the Xbox Store, which mentions split-screen support. Wreak havoc in Clone Carnage. This standalone DLC comes with 4 modes, 6 maps, and up to 4-player multiplayer. Split screen lets you double the damage in local 2-player multiplayer. Unleash your wild side in Rampage, Armageddon, Race, and Abduction modes. It's believed this is likely linked to the upcoming remake of Destroy All Humans 2 Reprobed, which was announced last September and accidentally revealed by PlayStation. So if you've ever wanted a multiplayer Destroy All Humans game, it looks like there is in fact one on the way. For me, not really appealing that much, if I'm being honest with you. I've always seen Destroy All Humans as kind of a single-player experience for me personally. I don't really see myself squatting up and going out abducting people, but I think that it could hit an audience, and I think this could be a great addition to Game Pass just because, again, it gets people excited and it gets people playing. You know, on a smaller level, as compared to Back 4 Blood, this could do the exact same kind of thing where Back 4 Blood had its numbers pumped up through that Game Pass catalog edition. And so being able to have that for Destroy All Humans could be a great option. So we'll have to see what happens with this. Destroy All Humans, of course, came to the service after it launched. So I don't know if this is going to be a day-and-date release. Could be one of those surprises at the Xbox and Bethesda showcase. Certainly sounds plausible in that way. But we will have to, as I always say, wait and see if this actually becomes a Game Pass title, but you can pretty much guarantee that Destroy All Humans Clone Carnage is in fact real, and it is going to launch this summer. So stay tuned for more. I'm sure this is going to be something we see during the summer Game Fest season. But that wraps up this week's episode of Xhibition, an Xbox podcast. Of course, if you enjoyed the show, you liked what you saw or what you heard, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, add the show to your podcast feed, and of course, we have plenty of great conversations coming in the months ahead with plenty of news on the roster to discuss, both some that we can expect and of course, some surprises along the way. But until next time, you guys have a fantastic rest of your week and keep on playing.